All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Titletown podcast. I, of course, am Rhino. You can find me on Twitter at Sports Talk Rhino. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Brandon. You can find him on Twitter at Wisco_Brandon. And, of course, we are joined by a very special guest today, Matt Froehlich of the Pack-A-Day podcast. You can find him on Twitter at Matt_FRA_. Matt, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. As we previously talked about, I was at a Brewers game today that looked like a football score, maybe a little LA Rams, Green Bay Packers score ended up being, but it was fun. No big deal, but it was a nice, I'm not a huge baseball fan. I coach baseball, so I love that. Watching it on TV sucks, but like being at a game is way different. And it kind of broke up the monotony of the spring, and it was a good cap to a great 3 days of NFL draft, which I'm excited to talk with you guys about.
At least it was great weather. I mean, it was a gorgeous day.
Weather.
Did you tailgate?
No, we didn't tailgate. We left town about 10. It takes about 2 hours to get down there. So by the time we got down there, we'll just walk in. It was I went with my girlfriend's dad, so that was an absolute blast. Got to watch baseball with him and eat a decent amount of ballpark food. So that was fun. Didn't tailgate. The opportunity was there, but we just didn't quite make that.
And Brandon, you were in the Dells. Oops, sorry, bud.
I am.
You were in the Dells, yeah. Brandon. How's your weekend up in the Dells?
Yeah, it's going great. Walking around and now every other person's a Bears fan apparently. So it's it's fun. No, it's going great. Matt, thank you. Like Rhino said, just echoing him. Appreciate you coming on, man. Means everything.
Absolutely, guys. So. Where are you at in the Dells, Brandon, though? What are we doing?
It's just a weekend getaway. Well, I was actually supposed to be home tonight. We woke up this morning and I was like, you know what? Like, life's too short. Let's stay another night. So all the kids are celebrating because they didn't have to go to school tomorrow. So we're at the Wilderness, nice. At the condos out here and just having a ball, enjoying. It's actually was like 90 degrees out here today. It was gorgeous. So it was nice. So yeah.
Excellent.
It's always nice to have the heat. It's been really cool lately. So the nice warm day that we had yesterday and today was amazing. So we're going to jump into it. We've had a crazy weekend in terms of Packers news. Obviously, we had the NFL draft Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We had everything that kind of unfolded starting Thursday afternoon with the Aaron Rodgers drama. We're going to get right into the draft, and we'll give you guys our breakdown of the draft. I would like to start with what you guys think overall. What is your overall grade of the draft? What is your overall opinion of how Brian Gutekunst did? Matt, I'll start with you. What are your opinions about the draft as a whole?
So I personally liked it quite a bit. I mean, there hasn't been many times in the last, 10 years that a first-round pick that I was like jacked for. And it was a late evening. I got done coaching a baseball game out of town, and by the time I got back, I was like trying to keep my eyes open to watch it. And when they drafted Stokes, I was like, hell yeah, let's go. Like, I wanted Eric Stokes. And then I checked Twitter, and I'm like, oh, I must have not refreshed. We're still freaking out stuff from earlier today. And no, people are pissed. I'm like, I'm just going to bed. You guys all suck. So everything after that, I really, really liked. I mean, you added offensive players in the trenches, guys that can make plays, a running back, Amari Rodgers, who I think is going to be a stud at receiver. And then you have defensive guys that I think are going to be able to contribute. Now, I think the first final grade I saw, I don't know who it was from. It could have been Pro Football Focus, but they said like a C- or a C. I don't really put much value into the grades because like no one really knows what the hell they're talking about until a couple years down the line anyways. But overall, I would say it wasn't an A+. It wasn't an A. It definitely wasn't a C. I would probably give it like a B or a B- if I had to. But I personally enjoyed it. There's a lot of names that I think can contribute. And I thought they found value throughout the entire draft until that final pick with Kylan Hill.
Brandon, how about you, bud? What you think?
Yeah, echoing what Matt said. I minus like the drama with the Rodgers and whatever. If this was any other draft, I'd be on the mountaintop screaming of pure joy because I think it was absolutely one of, and again, I don't judge a draft till we're at least 3 years, 2 to 3 years down the road. But just from a paper, on paper, I think it's one of the better drafts that the Packers have had, on paper in the last few years. You get a guy like Stokes, and what I like about the draft is that when you're going into the offseason, you're like, okay, what are the needs of this team? Okay, cornerback. Okay, offensive lineman, defensive tackle. And you addressed it, and obviously receiver is always a needed. Amari Rodgers, I think, is going to be one of the best picks of that draft. But you added positions of need and not just guys in the 6th and 7th round. I mean, you went ahead and first round pick, and you got a cornerback. Everybody's like, well, a cornerback, like, my God, but Kevin King's not going to be there forever. You got to have a guy that stacks up next to Jair Alexander. Now you got a guy who's 6'1" and runs a 4.25. Yeah. And what I like about all these draft picks, 6 of these draft picks, I think there was 8 picks total, if I'm not mistaken. 9 of them. Okay. 6 of the picks have started at their positions, respectively, 2 or more years. So what does that tell you? That these guys, they're leaders. They're leaders on the field. Obviously, Josh Myers was a captain in Ohio State. So they're starters. They're going right in from college. Yeah, obviously they're going to have a learning curve going into the professional, ranks, but their leadership roles from where they were in college, and now that easily translate into the NFL. I was excited about it. Obviously Chicago, credit to them, had a great draft. Every draft pick by the Chicago Bears is a future Hall of Famer if you jump on Twitter. So, but if you compare it and as far as the NFL goes, and again, I'm a homer. Everybody knows that. I thought it was phenomenal. You got positions of need and you did it tremendously. TJ Slayton is going to be a monster. I was watching tape on him. I was on vacation, but I was watching tape of TJ Slayton. He 6'4", 330. I mean, compared to Kenny Clark 6'3", 313. I mean, that's a big dude, man. That's a big guy. And you got him in the 5th round. What I like about him, and I know I'm going on a crazy rant, I just love the draft. But what I liked about TJ Slayton is he had a tackle in every game last year as a interior defensive lineman. I mean, that says something. That dude's motor is high. 10.5 tackles for loss last year in a shortened season. I loved it. I really did. And I obviously you got to let it play out. It's going to take a little while to see what these guys are about, but you address positions of need. And I thought they did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, to really echo that, they definitely did fill positions of need. If you looked at probably the 2 most important positions that the Packers needed in this draft, it was offensive line and quarterback. You lost your center. Your tackle is probably not going to be there week 1. If he is, he may not be 100%. So they tripled down on offensive line. They doubled down on cornerback. They went out and got a couple of weapons in a wide receiver and a running back. I thought the positions in the draft that they took these guys were perfect. I was a little thrown back by the Eric Stokes pick at first because I thought he mocked out more of a middle of the 2nd round. But at the same time, I don't put a whole lot of stock in mock drafts. After watching the tape, after really putting a little time into his analysis, I thought it was a great pick there in the 1st round. He's a guy that could, honestly, the first 3 picks could be day 1 starters. Mm-hmm. Amari Rodgers, the center that they took out of Ohio State, and Eric Stokes, they could all be on the field day 1, week 1.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I would, a little bit of bias in there. I would put the draft as a B+. I really liked it. I thought it was probably overall top to bottom. It was Gutekunst's best draft he's had in Green Bay. Matt, let's dig deep into the picks themselves. What was your favorite pick out of this draft?
I'm a big value guy, so I'm going to go with Slayton just because that was when it happened. I've been like, so I'm not in the camp of the Packers need a receiver. And the fact that they got him Amari Rodgers in the 3rd round, great value as well. However, the scratch that I had that needed to be itched, or the itch that needed to be scratched rather, was a big physical mammoth in the trenches on defense to pair next to Kenny Clark. And I've wanted that for years. And Damon Snacks Harrison, not really the best. Rumors of Danny Shelton. They've had other guys that have mixed in. They've tried to draft guys and they just haven't panned out. And no one knows if TJ Slayton will pan out. But based off his pedigree and based off of everything that I've seen, he's an absolute behemoth. And that's what I want them to have, is someone that can take a double team, potentially take it just some attention away from Kenny Clark to let him be dynamic. As you mentioned, like, statistics for defensive linemen or nose tackles are far and few between. Like, no one, a casual fan, unless you actually played football, or especially if you played defensive line, you don't really appreciate what people have to do in the trenches to be effective on the run or the pass. And I think whatever Slayton can provide, even if it's adding some competition to the locker room, I think he's going to bring a little bit more grit than a Montravius Adams and a Kinsley Keke than, Tyler Lancaster, Dean Lowry, these guys that have just kind of been on the roster just because we drafted them, they're there. We're going to kind of see what we can get out of the rookie deal. Slayton, I love. He's a guy that's going to come in and contribute. I guess he actually played offensive tackle, right tackle was in high school. So again, I'll probably hit on this a few times on this stream here, but one thing that you can know from Gutekunst, and we've only seen a few years out of him, you're starting to see trends emerge right away. Versatility is like the number one word. From the offensive lineman he drafts to positions of need. Guys can play multiple positions, and I think obviously, Slayton's not going to flip to the other side of the ball in case Bakhtiari's not out there and play right tackle, but the fact that he knows football on either side of it, I think, is enormous. So Slayton was one of my favorites based off of value. And I'm going to go a little homer here, like Cole Van Lanen, to see him come out. I'm from Stevens Point. I've lived in Green Bay for about 12, 13 years now, and I try to follow the prep scene as much as possible. And once Alec Ingold got in the league from Bayport, from Wisconsin to the Raiders, Cole Van Lanen was quick on his heels, and he was an absolute unit when he played for Bayport. And when he went to the Badgers, I'm like, someone's going to get a good kid, because he is a good kid. He's an absolute football player. And the fact that they were able to grab him is like unbelievable. And you can't feel, there's not a better story you could tell than for a kid like that to be able to grow up and all of a sudden be able to grow up in the shadows of Lambeau and now be able to have friends and family just fill the stadium and the tailgates and the bars when it's appropriate, to just be able to support him. And I'm super pumped for him. And I think he could be a guy that could come in and contribute right away, or at least compete in the locker room, at least be on the active roster potentially, with the way that LaFleur and Gutekunst have set the active roster with a lot of offensive linemen. So based off of value, those are my favorites. And as I mentioned, Eric Stokes, love the guy. Something I need to reiterate is Brandon kind of mentioned this a little bit about them drafting corners and defensive players. Like, yeah, the Packers have drafted defensive backs. Like, don't get me wrong, that's very common. But Josh Jackson, not what he looked like he was going to be from Iowa coming into the league. Kadar Holman really hasn't been that speed nickel corner that they expected him to be. Chandon Sullivan's here or there. Like, they really haven't had a solid dude to come in and compete and to make it easy to get rid of Kevin King. As much as I want it to happen, it made sense to bring him back for that cheap deal. But I think Eric Stokes is going to come in and compete, and I'm really excited to see what he can do with Jerry Gray and Joe Barry in that defense. I think they're going to put him in spots to make plays.
That's great analysis. I love every ounce of that. My heart wants to go with the Amari Rodgers pick, just because everyone wanted a wide receiver. I wanted a wide receiver. They didn't need one. I wanted one. My favorite pick has to be Josh Myers. It has to be, because I love that they went out and filled the gap at center with somebody who could literally come in and start day one. And as you spoke about with versatility, Josh Myers could also fill in at guard if need be. If he comes into the NFL, like if he comes into OTAs and minicamp, and they decide they want to throw him at guard instead of center, he could fit in with guard right away as well. I think he can have that Elgton Jenkins kind of versatility, but he's a massive center. You're talking about 6'4", 320 plus. He's a guy that can fill the A gap with his arms alone. His upper body is incredibly wide. His footwork might need a little bit of help, but I think his strength up top speaks for itself. He's a guy that could push anyone around. His vision when he gets to the second level, he maintains constant eye contact with anyone he's going after at the second level. So I think that's one of his best attributes as well. But I think Josh Myers could not only come in, start day one, but he could make a very big impact on that offensive line. The center position for the Green Bay Packers outside of Jeff Saturday has been plug and play for probably the past 12, 13 years. So it's not a difficult position that he's going to be taking over with Green Bay, but I think he could be an impact center and one that stays with Green Bay for years to come. That's my favorite pick. Brandon, how about you, bud?
Yeah, and I apologize. I didn't give a grade because I was going on a rant about TJ Slayton before. I, kind of backtrack a minute. I would give it a B+ right now. I spoke very highly about it, and I still feel that way. But I like to let these guys play out. I like that they address needs. It's hard to really pick a favorite, spot here, because kind of like Matt said, and kind of like Rhino said, you lose Corey Linsley, so you literally replace him with a clone of Corey Linsley that literally wore the same number at Ohio State. TJ Slayton, I'm kind of with Matt. Matt, I know you're a guest on the show, but you took a little bit of my thunder, but that's okay. I love the TJ Slayton pick, and I know prior to the shows leading up to the draft, we were talking about needs, and I said, man, no offense to Kinsley Kiki or Dean Lowry, any of those guys, like, they're better at what they do than I am at what I do. But we need somebody in a rotational, like a rotational piece to just be there when Kenny Clark is not there. When Kenny Clark doesn't play and he misses a game, you can feel it. You can see it. Those yards per rush go up to that 4-6 area. And you're like, man, like, come on. So I'm in love with the TJ Slayton pick. When I watched him play, there was a play that stuck out. It was against Mississippi State. He took out the guard, center, and the running back for the sack. I mean, I was like, now again, obviously that you're always going to see the good plays, but I don't know. The potential is just endless, I think, with him. And then you get him in there with Kenny Clark, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And then you look at Eric Stokes, and you're like, man, just think for a second. And again, no offense to Kevin King. If Eric Stokes produces as a quality cornerback in the NFL on the Green Bay Packers, you take a number 9 overall defense last year, and you're probably in the top 5 because no offense to Kevin King, but he was probably the weakness in that secondary. You're talking about Adrian Amos, Pro Football's Focus's number 1 safety last year. Darnell Savage, rising star. Obviously, you know what Jair Alexander is. And then you add in Eric Stokes, 6'1", 425. If he turns into what we hope he is and what a lot of people think he can be, obviously you have the rotational pieces on the defensive line, and your pass rush is going to be there. Obviously with Za'Darius, and you hope Preston comes back in better shape. And I think Rashawn Gary is going to be an absolute monster this year. You're looking at a pretty darn good defense. And I know everybody likes to look at that defense down in Chicago, but I think Green Bay might be something to play with that defense come, September, if Eric Stokes is the real deal, is as good as we think is. So again, I'm going way off track here. It's hard to really put a thumbprint on what I think is my favorite pick. I really do love all of them. I mean, Amari Rodgers, God, we've wanted a Randall Cobb, for so long after he left. His presence has been missed. And, you know what I mean? Like we have been calling for a guy. We thought it was this guy. Again, I'm not a draft expert. I'm not Todd McShay. He reminds me of Tyler Ervin, but like a really good version of Tyler Ervin. Like he's going to be the punt returner. He's going to be the kick returner. You're going to be able to do the jet sweep. I mean, he took a screen pass, 90 yards for a touchdown, and he shed 2 tackles. And I mean, like the dude's electric, and you could plug him anywhere. And Matt LaFleur is as creative as it gets. And it's just exciting to see, what they're going to do with him. There's so many options to do. Wheel route out of the backfield. I mean, we could go on for days, but I guess I'm going to, go with the unpopular one. I'm going to go with Eric Stokes because it was a pick that got a lot of, attention in the first round. Obviously, everybody was like, oh, this is the Packers sticking, their finger in Aaron Rodgers' nose by taking a cornerback in the first round. But the guy, I mean, he went, I mean, again, and I said this on our show when we did the live show on draft night, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, he's gone up against all of these guys. I mean, all of them week in and week out in the SEC. And he's put up phenomenal numbers. So I'm looking forward to him. I think there's a lot of them that there's honestly not a pick I don't like, to be God honest with you. I mean, as homer as they come, and I'll be honest with you, I love all of them. But if I had to pick one to really like put my eye on it, because I think that the Packers are just minus the Aaron Rodgers stuff, probably one really good cornerback from making that defense into a top 5.
Absolutely.
One of the comparisons that I saw on Twitter after the Amari Rodgers pick was he is Randall Cobb meets Ty Montgomery meets Tyler Ervin.
Yeah,
is the greatest. That's the greatest tweet that I saw about Amari Rodgers. Let's dig a little bit more into that first pick. This is obviously the pick that's going to take the majority of the criticism for Brian Gutekunst. It's the one that everyone's going to have their focal point on come OTAs, come week 1. So let's dig into Eric Stokes. I think this pick was made specifically for the style of defense that Joe Barry is going to bring to the table, that zone style defense. One of the things that I really love about Eric Stokes after digging into it a little bit after Thursday night is, his ability to turn and run and stay with his opponent in press coverage. That is huge. And that's something that you saw the Packers struggle with in press coverage under their last couple of DCs that they've had. Is, anytime they were in press coverage, they were burned. Guys were running, they were past them after 3-4 yards off the line of scrimmage. So his ability to stay with his guy off the line of scrimmage in press coverage is pretty huge. That 4.25 speed that Brandon touched on also is huge. Matt, what are your opinions about Eric Stokes specifically?
Yeah, no, it's you kind of mentioned that. I'm going to reiterate even more. So I had no expectations of this draft. And I tried to go in last year with them being very, very low, and they weren't low enough. So now I was like, I really just need to reassess, like, what is predictable? Like, what can happen? Like, what is plausible? Like, I went through every scenario that may have occurred. And come like Tuesday, I was very firm on the idea that you bring in Joe Barry, you let him get a guy or two. I was very, very convinced I was going to go defense to the first round, just based off side-by-side offense compared to defense. Defense needs a little bit more help. Offense is, pretty much solidified everywhere across the board besides center, which they addressed, because drafting a first-round center I would have been okay with, but I would have been not as happy as Eric Stokes. So I love the fact that Joe Barry got his guy, and I don't know if Eric Stokes is 100% that what's the star position, the nickel corner that he is always so famous for of using. He doesn't necessarily have to be. I think there's enough versatility with the defensive backs that anyone could play that spot for Joe Barry. But I just love Stokes, that he can come in and add speed to an already super quick defensive backfield. I think Stokes' size, his athleticism, and like you mentioned, and everyone's that was as you dug a little bit into it, you notice that, he's gone up against stiff competition, and he has gone up against some of the best receivers in this draft class and in the country. So if he can do that, I think that can transfer into the league. And, it's time and time again, like, you can teach a lot of stuff in the league. You can teach scheme, you can teach, concepts, you can teach technique. You can't teach speed. You can't teach a 4.25. Like, that's just God-given ability. So I'm excited to see what he will contribute. If he can play some nickel corner, great. I expect him to compete with that number 2 spot. I'm curious to see how it emerges early on. If it's a sure tip of the hat veteran move, let CB2 be Kevin King, or new defensive regime. Like I said, he goes and gets his guy. If his guy is his guy, let him go compete for that number 2 spot. I don't think Kevin King can really play nickel corner all too well, so that'll be an interesting thing. But I think overall, there's enough pieces in the defensive backfield that you can make something work. But I'm just jacked to see Eric Stokes, because you mentioned too, like, maybe he would have gone second round. That's fine. Jay Alexander, probably the same thing we thought of, but like, just to have someone where there's actual speed and he's a physical specimen. I feel like the Packers lack grabbing those guys once in a while. And maybe they're project guys oftentimes, but I'm very confident Eric Stokes can be able to contribute, and he'll have his growing pains as every defensive back does, especially cornerbacks, rookie cornerbacks. Anyone listening to this, taper your expectations very, very low. It's tough. And it's going to be tough for the rest of the 11 guys or whoever's playing, because conceptually, you're going away from a traditional sub-package defense with Dom Capers. Joe Barry runs some sub-package as well, but just the principles and the rules and the strategies are going to be way different. So it's going to take a while to get everyone's feet under them that way. But if you're only adding one defensive possible starter, that being Stokes, and obviously we mentioned Slayton, he could get his time in there as well. But I think it's going to be a good fit for everyone. It's going to be an easy transition. And I hope Eric Stokes is able to contribute with some flash plays right away. I don't expect him to be an absolute lockdown, but he's gonna be fun to watch. I'm super jazzed.
Do you think with that 4.25 speed that they try and incorporate him in the special teams game at all?
I was wondering that too, and there was a lot of draft coverage I was doing. Players, for Pack a Day, we did the coverage of running backs and receivers. So I was able to kind of really drive that home, like, hey, this guy might be an extra value pick because he can return balls, return punts or whatnot. I think I saw that Stokes returned kicks in high school and college. I could be wrong. I know that's not it's not like in Madden where I like to put, fastest guy, put him in there. Like, there has to be some like kick return, punt return skills. As much as I like to have the fastest guy out there is the best. But at this point, anyone that can catch the damn ball and get 10 yards is going to have a chance. So whoever that is I'm fine with. I would imagine he's going to get an opportunity, because it seems like any young secondary guy that's been brought in the last few years with LaFleur and Gutekunst gets at least an opportunity in training camp. So we'll see what happens. But as long as he can catch the ball and fall forward for a few, I'm cool with it.
It kind of seems like with the gift of having Hall of Fame quarterbacks for 30 years, it seems like the curse that came along with that is perennial awful special teams plays. So when you see a guy get drafted with 4.25 speed, you kind of just pray, like, please let him try once and see what happens. Brandon, what are your thoughts on Eric Stokes? Do you see him as a day one starter? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so going into the draft, and Rhino, you remember this. My expectations in that first round were kind of just like, well, last year was quarterback, so like whatever we do this year, I'm not going to be like upset about. I'll kind of just go with the flow. And when you look at it, okay, we need cornerback, we need offensive lineman. Obviously, everybody always thinks we need a receiver. I'm against that, but I didn't have any expectations going into that first round, so I was really happy with the pick. And then I broke down a little bit of the numbers and I broke down a little bit of the film and I kind of looked at who he was going up against. And, seeing him allow last year alone only 16 receptions for 1 touchdown. I mean, in the SEC, I think like 4 of them went in the first round, in the first like 10 picks, receivers, that he went up against. So I think at the very least, okay, if he doesn't turn into an all-pro or a Pro Bowler or, a formidable cornerback, at the very least, I guess we could say, is that he's going to push Kevin King in the behind and get him going, because I don't know if he's a day one starter. It's, as a cornerback, it's really hard to kind of see, we all remember the growing pains with Jair Alexander and, the defensive penalties that he was with the grabbing but when you watch Eric Stokes, a lot of, and now I know I'm saying this because he's on the Packers, but a lot of his game reminds me of Jair Alexander's. He's very stingy, especially in the passing game. Obviously, he's kind of everywhere. He's right into the defender's face. He's right, making them uncomfortable. He's cutting off their routes. I love watching him play. I love breaking down his film. I'm not a film guy, so if you guys are listening, I'm not like Eli, Berkovitz or anything like that. I'm just a normal guy that watches football. But when you watch him, you watch him and you just see a lot of Jair, and you just think like, man, if this guy can translate to the next level and get into that, cornerback 2 spot and kind of see where Joe Barry, puts him again, new defensive coordinator. So we don't know what the role, we don't know how he's going to go. We don't know where he's going to, if he's going to be in a sub package, if he's going to be out on the outside. I mean, eventually I think he probably is. Again, when you look at the numbers and you're 6'1" and you're 4.25, I mean, I'm gonna tell you right now, Scotty Miller's not running for a touchdown before halftime in the NFC Championship game. Yeah,
great point. Great point.
I mean, it's just not going to happen. Again, no discredit to Kevin King. I don't want to disrespect anybody on this show, but again, you can't teach speed. I think eventually, Rhino, to answer your question after another needless rant, I think that he probably does. I think he probably does. By the middle of the year, he's probably in that spot. And again, Kevin King's only here for 1 year, whatever, 1.8 million, whatever it was. I mean, this is a bridge. It's a bridge at the very most. Kevin King, I hope he's successful and wherever he goes after this. I just don't see it being in Green Bay after this year.
And, just to reiterate what I had said earlier, my favorite aspect of Eric Stokes is his ability to mirror his wide receiver out of press coverage. You're going into a division with a lot of quality wide receivers. Justin Jefferson, Chicago has a couple of tough guys too. So his ability to he's an annoyance. I think you made a great comparison to Jair Alexander. Jair is an annoyance for wide receivers. He's in your face. He's on your back constantly. So that was a good comparison. And I'm really excited to see what he can do going forward. Let's try and break down a little bit the second overall pick for the Green Bay Packers, Amari Rodgers. I think personally, this is one of Brian Gutekunst's better picks in terms of what this player is going to offer right away and what he can offer long term. I think the one weapon that Matt LaFleur was really missing is that slot receiver gadget style guy. I mean, Amari Rodgers is somebody that can line up literally anywhere from sideline to sideline. He can line up out wide, in the slot, in the backfield. You could send him in motion. Another thing is only 31% of Aaron Rodgers' passes last year were attempts to the slot position. So it gives him a little bit more versatility downfield. So I really like this pick in the second round. I think the value that you're going to get out of that in terms of your return on investment right away is probably going to be the best out of the entire draft. Matt, what is your opinion on Amari Rodgers?
He's a piece that we've wanted for a long time. And I say I wanted a big guy next to Kenny Clark. I've wanted a gadgety guy since Matt LaFleur got there. They've had their stab with Tyler Ervin, Tavon Austin, but he really hasn't had an opportunity to go and get his guy. And maybe Nathaniel Hackett as well. I'm sure he's wanted a dude like that. But Amari Rodgers, to me, and I've heard comparisons of Deebo Samuel, I think it's a fair box to put them in. I don't think it's a 1-to-1. But here's a dude that can contribute on two facets of the game. You mentioned Eric Stokes. Can he return kicks? I don't know, but if he can return them, he's going to be sitting next to Amari Rodgers competing for it. Amari Rodgers can go on the punt return, kick return. He's had rushing touchdowns, receiving touchdowns at Clemson. But I think, like you mentioned, here's an opportunity for him to come in and impact the game right away, whether that's in the special teams game, whether that's just 6, 7, 8 targets, because there's really no one to do that right now. There's not a soul on that offense that can play that slot spot like Amari Rodgers can, assuming that's what they want him to do. You got to assume that it's going to be Adams, MVS at the top, Amari Rodgers somewhere in the mix, and we'll see what Lazard, Funchess, the list goes on and on of other guys that could contribute. So he's just a different cat that they haven't had. They've spent some equity on him in the draft, which is great, instead of getting some, no offense to Tyler Ervin or Tavon Austin. Both were phenomenal at one point in their own capacities, but they're just not what they once were. I think Amari Rodgers is exactly what the Packers have needed. Again, you get him in the 3rd round. That's significant value. You went and traded up for him, which is fine. Obviously, that was your dude. You didn't really give up much. I think it was just a 4th round pick, and they swapped thirds. I'm cool with that. And it shows you, based off of the power play, to go up and get him, that they really, really liked him, and they needed to get him a part of that offense, which makes you feel even better about it. It wasn't like the guy that just fell in their lap and they drafted some receiver that might work. I think Amari Rodgers is going to come in and he's going to impact the game immediately. And I think the sky's the limit for them to figure out if he can tackle the playbook, if he can get into it and really understand what they're going to try to do conceptually. But big physical dude as well. He's not some 5'9" little, tiny receiver that's we're have to, critique his weight or not. Like a Devontae Smith. He's going to come in at 210 and be an absolute potential thumper if he needs to run through a guy. So I'm excited, and I'm pretty jazzed to see Tim Boyle's number being passed on to someone like Amari Rodgers. That's important to note as well.
I thought one of the things that made Randall Cobb so important to the offense, I think the reason that he was so valuable to Rodgers in specific, was his improvisational skills. Yeah. Once the pocket collapsed, once Rodgers got outside of the pocket, when there was any kind of pass rush, Randall Cobb was able to make a play somewhere downfield better than almost anybody in that offense. I think that's the kind of skill that Amari Rodgers brings, is his ability to improv. When the play breaks down, when the protection for Rodgers breaks down, he's going to find a way to get open. He's going to find a way to make a play. Brandon, what are your thoughts on Amari Rodgers?
Yeah, and I kind of alluded to it talking on the overall draft pick at the beginning of the show. I absolutely love it. When Brian Gutekunst loves a player, you know it. You remember it. You remember in 2018 when he traded back into the first, I believe it was 2018, for Darnell Savage. Like you just right away, like this guy is going up. And again, I can't confirm any reports. I'm not Ian Rappaport, but there were some tweets and some people with a blue check mark next to their name that were saying Green Bay was actually torn between Josh Myers and Amari Rodgers in that 2nd round. So that goes that, yeah. So that, again, that I robbed Domowski. There was a bunch of them there. So that kind of shows you like where the Packers valued him, and to go into the 83rd pick it was, and get him, or
85th?
It was something like that.
Somewhere in the mid 80s,
whatever. Something like that. So that goes to show you the value that the Green Bay Packers had on him. And you can see that he's built for, again, we'll get into it in a little bit. He's built for a guy like Aaron Rodgers, because when Randall Cobb was here, it always seemed, there's that video of that 12-year-old Chicago Bears fan where he's like, Randall Cobb again? Like, he's just, what I love about
Randall Cobb again.
Yeah. What you loved about Randall Cobb was he seemed to always be in the right place at the right time. And whenever you needed 3rd and 3, he got you 3rd and 4. You needed 4th and 2, he got you 3. And you see that with Amari Rodgers. Now, again, the game's got to translate to the next level. He led the Tigers with receptions in 2020 with 77. He was Trevor Lawrence's favorite target. And he wasn't the number 1 receiver over there on the left. This guy was all around the field. So for him to get 77 receptions, you think like, yeah, he's a receiver. He should. Oh, he came out of the backfield. He was, I mean, he lined up everywhere. Obviously, the punt return aspect of his game is there. He had a touchdown in 2018 before he got hurt and tore his ACL. But I think that, he fits perfectly right now with where the Packers are. Again, he's a Tyler Ervin, like Matt said. He's a Tyler Ervin. The other speed guy, I'm forgetting off the top of my head.
Tavon Austin.
Thank you. But he's built. I think his coach said it the best. Again, his name slipped in my mind. He said that he's a receiver, but he's built like a running back. Like you're not gonna tackle this guy with one guy. I mean, it's gonna take a few of you to get him down, and he's tough over the middle. It honestly just fits really well. And you talk about fit and drafting a guy. Everybody wants take the best player. Well, sure, they could have in the first round there was a handful of guys they could have got. But I'm not sure they all fit the way that Amari Rodgers fits. Now, obviously, I'm one of the biggest cheerleaders as far as the Packers go. I love the fit. I love the player. I love the toughness. I love the mentality that he comes to play with. Again, I mean, his dad was a former professional football player. So the genes are there, obviously. I'm excited for him. I think, if the front office and Aaron Rodgers get everything back on track, I think he's going to be a rookie to look out for.
And just really quickly to touch on Amari Rodgers, he tore his ACL and he was back on the field within 166 days. That speaks volumes to his work ethic. I mean, who responds from a torn ACL, especially at a skill position like wide receiver in 166 days? Now, very quickly, before we get into the next topic, very quickly, you've got Adams, MVS, Funchess, St. Brown, Lazard, this gentleman, Tavon Austin. Who leaves? They obviously are not going to keep all 7 of these guys or try and bring back all 7 of these guys in 2021. Who is going to be left off this roster going into 2021?
I hate this. I hate the receiver debate. It's so tough because there's guys that just haven't really fully proved themselves. Like there's so much talent between specifically like EQ. Like he's a physical specimen. Like to get rid of him is a crime, but he just really hasn't done much on the field. Lazard he's solid. You got to respect him. He's grinded his whole way from being a top high school recruit to going to Iowa State to performing and just battling around the league down in Jacksonville, and then finally found his home with the Packers. If I had to guess, though, I would say they're gonna kick the tires a little bit longer on Devin Funchess. It'd be really stupid to have brought him in, have him opt out, and then not ever see him on the field. So if I had to guess, it's probably, and you said Tavon Austin too.
Yeah.
I would say Tavon and EQ are on the chopping block. Tavon's probably, like I don't know when the first time you can cut the roster down, but he's probably one of the first ones off because there's just no reason to keep him anymore. Like he was signed halfway through the year. He didn't contribute all that much when he was on the field. And like we said, we got a cheaper version. We got a younger version. We got a better version with Amari Rodgers. So I got to think EQ and Tavon are probably the first 2 gone.
I mean, I think with bringing in Amari Rodgers, for example, being a special teams guy, and then the potential with Eric Stokes there, I can't imagine that they would take the risk of keeping a roster spot open for Tavon Austin, who really isn't going to contribute much offensively, when you could have these other 2 guys that you brought in the draft contribute on the special teams. We're going to move on now to what really took over the entire draft weekend. As unfortunate as it is, I really wish it wouldn't have, but the saga with the quarterback position in Green Bay has reared its ugly head after about a decade in time since Brett Favre. We're getting reports out of left field. People are saying that he wants the general manager gone. People are saying that he is considering retirement, that, all 3 of the president, the GM, and the head coach have gone out to him in California and visited him. Matt, what are your thoughts on really what the hell is going on with Aaron Rodgers?
Honestly, I don't recall getting so many text messages from family, friends, whatever, just saying like, hey, what's going on? And like, I have no blue check mark. I have no nothing. I watch the team as closely as I can. And I talk about with guys like you that you guys like that are above average knowledge of football and the Packers. And I've talked about it quite a bit that's the best way is like, I've texted a couple buddies about it. I've talked to my dad about it. I've talked to on the drive down to the game tonight or today, the Brewers game. I talked about it with my girlfriend's dad. Like, it's confusing. Like, obviously that's first and foremost. And the confusing part is the timing of it is strange. And for it to come out on the Thursday, a couple hours before the draft, is kind of stupid. Who has the ambition or the reason to put that out? Not sure. You can probably, if we throw enough data out there, we could debate on it. The fact that Rodgers said he felt disrespected or he didn't like that it got leaked, it's like, you were probably part of the problem, dude. Also, we don't have a large, we have like I said, we've understood what Gutekunst likes. He likes versatile guys. We don't understand how he operates with a franchise quarterback that's disgruntled and you drafted a potential replacement. Like, we have no idea how to assess that. We had a good idea with Ted Thompson, but even that was like a one-off. You don't really know how that works. But overall, I wish I really understood what really chapped Aaron's rear end, because what do you want, dude? Like, what do you want? We got rid of Corey Linsley. I'm sorry. Like, it just wasn't going to work out. Center's great. I know you're a big fan of your center and the continuity there. That's one thing. You have one of the best receivers in the league. You should be pretty set there. You turned in Robert Tonyan into a stud. We drafted Amari Rodgers. Obviously, after the fact, that doesn't really apply to the Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon stuff. But you brought back Aaron Jones. Like that. I was, as soon as I saw Aaron Jones done, like the NFC Championship game, we lost. I'm like, that's the last time you'll see 33 in green and gold. And they somehow pulled some strings and got that to work out. Like, I'm sorry, but what the hell do you want, dude? I don't get it. I don't understand what your issue is. And to demand Brian Gutekunst's job for it is unbelievable. And there must be some stuff that's happened behind closed doors that we're not privy to and only a few people in this entire planet are a part of. But the part is like, what more do you want? Like, I don't know what you want. Like, if you're really about it and you want this team to win, pull some Tom Brady stuff and start demanding that they give you less money, and you worry about your endorsement deals, you worry about your Bose and your Chevy and your Jeopardy money and your State Farm money coming in, and you say the hell with it, what the Green Bay Packers check looks like. Because that, if you were really that selfless, you would have done that already. But that hasn't happened. If you really wanted Corey Linsley to come back, you would have done that, and you would have got them to figure that out. So it seems hypocritical from him. However, there is part of me that we don't really know a lot about Brian Gutekunst, and everything you see on him, he's a pretty tight to the shirt type of dude. Like, he doesn't really give much off. Like Matt LaFleur, you can kind of catch him slipping on sometimes, whether he's pissed or he's super happy, or there's certain guys he likes, and even some players do that. But Goody's like, he's pretty straight and narrow, and he's well versed on the PR team from the Green Bay Packers, who was really good. So part of me thinks that maybe this slipped out, and I'll be on Aaron's side. Maybe the Packers put this out to drum off the trade 8 hours before the draft, whether it be for Jordan Love or Aaron Rodgers. There's part of me that thinks that, and the manipulation from the front office to do that, I could see happen. It seems, that the Packers are the real good old boys club, and they're not going to hurt anyone's feelings, and we're gonna play Metallica, and we're gonna roll at the barrel and all that stuff. Everyone really likes it, but like, this is a new age Packers, and for them to pull some PR stunt like this seems plausible. But at the end of the day, man, I've come to terms with, like, if he retires, if he demands a trade, if he, the Carson Palmer or whatever situation you want to talk about that could occur here, there's 52 other guys in this roster. Aaron Rodgers is my favorite Packer of all time, hands down. But if he's not on the team and he doesn't want to be a part of the team, I guess that is what it is. But we have seen Aaron Rodgers pull this hijinks before. We've maybe not to this extent or not the exact same situation, but he has talked about his issues with the team, and things have been fixed. So hopefully those things are fixed. But at this point, it's not the coach, because you and Matt LaFleur are dudes. It was definitely Mike McCarthy. That's fine. What can we do to resolve this? So it's a little frustrating, but I think it'll get figured out. I don't really know what to do. I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, I'm just like, I'm not sure what exactly. It's like, what do I have another hard seltzer? Or do I sit and watch Aaron Rodgers tape and cry, like, with a hard seltzer? I don't know what to do.
So I spoke about this on Thursday when this entire situation broke out. You are amongst the luckiest of franchises when you have two Hall of Fame quarterbacks go back to back. And then what are the odds of not only having Hall of Fame quarterbacks back-to-back, but having an ugly divorce back-to-back. And if you look at, Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre being the two variables, what is the X factor? What is the constant in that equation? And that's Mark Murphy. Mark Murphy was a part of the Brett Favre saga. Mark Murphy is a part of the Aaron Rodgers saga. Now, that's one end of the spectrum. Mm-hmm. I would like to believe what really sparked this with Aaron Rodgers is, he spoke a couple years ago about how he did not want to be Brett Favre. He did not want to leave Green Bay the way Brett Favre left Green Bay. He did not want to treat another young quarterback the way that he was treated. I think when those sentiments were spoken out loud, to him, it was that personal agreement with the franchise. Like, all right, guys, you have my word that I'm not going to leave Green Bay the way Favre did. I need your word that you're not going to go behind my back and do to me what you did to Favre in terms of drafting me, which would be Jordan Love. And I don't think that quite sat with Aaron Rodgers at first until they lost the NFC Championship game. And then he probably sat back and was like, you know what? They did go behind my back. They never consulted with me. They drafted this guy in the first round. They moved up to get him when they could have got me an impact player to help me win that game. Now I'm pissed. So whether or not that's right or wrong, I'm not going to speculate on that, but I do believe that is probably what is fueling his fire, is that he didn't want to Brett Favre, and now he's getting Brett Favre. So I am right there when I share the sentiments that if he doesn't want to be there, bye. He is also my favorite Packer of all time. I do think he is one of the greatest quarterbacks who have ever walked the planet. But at the same time, I have a game to watch come second Sunday of September. Mm-hmm. Whether you're there or not, I'm going to watch this team play football. Either get it together now and join us, or go to Denver, go to Los Angeles, go to Las Vegas. I don't care. Mm-hmm. But figure it out. Brandon, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, man, you guys nailed it. I'm with both of you. And I was sitting down in my basement when the news happened on Friday or Thursday, excuse me. And I immediately went to the defense of Aaron Rodgers. I'm like, why, what's going on? Like, he's my favorite player in almost any professional sport. He's my favorite. I've defended him, through everything. I grew up with, I was a junior in high school when Aaron Rodgers took over. So, my 31 years old now, he's been my guy, and we've been lucky to watch him play. Hate to break the news to him, and I know I'm not breaking the news to him. There is an organization that has been there from 1919. Okay, it's going to be there after he's gone too. Nobody, including Starr, including Rodgers, including Curly Lambeau, has been bigger than the team. Remember, those guys were all let go or fired, in some form or fashion. Mm-hmm. The notion that drives me absolutely nuts, and this is when I defend the Packers organization. Well, I guess I defend it, is when the uneducated fan says, well, if you guys don't ever get him any help, why would he want to be there? And it irks me, and Rhino knows this. It irks me because he does have a plethora of help. Yes. Do we forget in 2011, 2012, he donned the cover of SI with like 7 targets in the offensive side of the ball. Mm-hmm. Let's not forget that he has the best receiver in football. Everybody can say he could be. Devontae Adams is the best receiver in football. You have a top 3 running back. You consistently have a top 5 offensive line, even when guys leave. Yep. You signed your best friend in David Bakhtiari. At one point, made him the highest paid left tackle in football. You get guys like Billy Turner to plug in and play multiple positions. You spend a 2nd-round draft pick on Elton Jenkins, who literally plays every position on the offensive side. I'm sorry we couldn't keep Randall Cobb, who once he left Green Bay fell apart. I'm sorry we couldn't keep Jordy Nelson once he left and played in Oakland and never played again. That James Jones, obviously him and Greg Jennings, the Green Bay's front office knows what they're doing. And we can sit here and we can act mad and we can act like, well, we don't have any help. You just had the number 1 offense, historically great offense in the National Football League last year. I honestly and I'm not going at Rodgers. I'm not picking a side. I see both sides, but I lean more towards the Packers. And I honestly, after that NFC Championship game, I remember sitting down. Obviously, we were all upset. And you saw Matt Schneidman and Rob Demoski, and they were tweeting out his comments. And one of them were like, did Brett, I'm sorry, excuse me. I guess you could call him Brett Favre. He said, did Aaron Rodgers just retire? Like the way he was talking.
Yep.
And because he made that weird, like, yeah, my future is a beautiful mystery or whatever it was, some weird, like, California thing. And
weird Rodgers way of speaking.
Yeah, like, let's go eat grass and drink mud. Like, we don't know what's going to happen, like weird stuff. So, like, you could kind of see a little bit of the writing on the wall, and the way he lost, and he lost too. Now, again, for those crowds that say, well, go get him some help. Now, keep in mind that Packers defense that Brian Gutekunst poured a lot of money into in 2019 with, the Smith brothers and Adrian Amos and put money onto that side of the ball for him, produced 3 straight turnovers. And what did he do? Produce 3 straight 3-and-out. So again, take that finger, don't point it at somebody else, point it at you. What can you do better in that game? Historically, he plays pretty bad in NFC championship games. I know his numbers looked better this year. And again, they had to. You were down by 17 points at halftime. I don't want to pick a side. I don't want to feel like, I know it sounds like I'm going after Aaron Rodgers, but what more do you want, man? Like, what really? And Rhino, you nailed it. Like, I think I'm not trying to cause any more drama or speculation. I think there's a little bit of jealousy of Tom Brady and what Brady's been able to do, in 2 different organizations, and kind of he sees like, okay, Brady leaves New England, he's going to go to Tampa and win 9 games and whatever. But then he sees like, Antonio Brown, and obviously they got Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, and they bring in Ndamukong Suh, and they bring in all these free agents, and they win the Super Bowl, and he loses to them, prior to them winning the Super Bowl. So I feel like maybe it's a little bit of envy of Tom Brady. Like, maybe I can leave Green Bay and have that success somewhere else. But then I get mad because I'm like, dude, you've been preaching for years how you love this city, how you love the organization, how you don't want to see another ending, and you don't want to be treated like you were treated. And you're doing the same thing to Jordan Love. The organization has a job to do. They have a job to do when you're gone. He's 38 years old, going to be 39 this December. Like, you're not 30 years old anymore. Like, unfortunately, Father Time is always going to win. And
he's undefeated.
The organization, again, I'm not one of those guys that sits on the sideline and is cheering for the organization. They've had their mistakes. They've had their, issues, they've worked through it. And he's been the highest paid quarterback for so many years. Like, what, I mean, honestly, man, what more do you want? Again, like Matt said, nobody in their right mind thought Aaron Jones was coming back. Nobody thought. As soon as he fumbled that ball in the second half and he was benched, and we were like, well, that sucks because that's the last we'll see of Aaron Jones.
That's the last of Aaron Jones, exactly.
And then he comes back, and you're like, oh, crap. Like, okay. Like, so it's like, again, like, yeah, exactly. What more do you want? You consistently given options and weapons. Again, and if you're watching the show and you're not a Packer fan, Aaron Rodgers, breaking news, has weapons. He does. I hate to hurt your feelings, but the notion in the national media, because Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith just read a headline and they don't understand about a Packer game because they don't watch it, he's got plenty of options. And it's unfortunate. As a Packer fan who lived through the Favre era, as you guys did, we've been through it. It's like one of those things where you're like, all right, here we go again. It sucks because you feel like there's a few years here to make a run, especially with the team that they currently have. It really sucks to be honest with you.
It does. I have 2 things real quick, Ryan, before you try to tie a bow on this whole thing. I'll be quick. Ahead. One, I think it's important to note the intangibles that is with Aaron Rodgers. Like, he doesn't need first-round talent receiver, nor does he need to go pay a Kenny Galladay that money. Like, that's stupid. That's idiotic. You don't need to have that. Like, he can make careers out of anyone. And we've already mentioned 5 or 6 of those receivers in this conversation. We could go even further down the list. Like, he's played with some scrubs. Like,
James Jones led the league in touchdowns.
Dude, with a hoodie on, with a stinking hoodie on. Like, like, let's be real. Like, Jared Abbrederis, the other white receiver that I'm forgetting, who is Jeff Janis. Like, he's been able to do it with whoever the hell he wants. You don't put money into the receiver position. Second, and no one ever wants to be the last person to know that their time is up. No one wants to be that person. No one wants to go out on their terms. Like I'm sure you guys have grandparents or parents or whoever. Like, there's that point where it's like, can you take care of yourself or not? And by that time you've figured it out, it's like, oh, you've made that transition. It's that just kind of goes past you. Like, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I don't want, like, he's a control freak. His former girlfriends have said that. Like, Danica Patrick has said that in the podcast. He's a control freak, and that's what makes him great. And I understand that. Like, but you don't want to potentially go out on the terms of Alex Smith, where he got booted out of town for losing 1 or 2 games with the Niners. Like, you don't want to get replaced all of a sudden. Then that's it. You want to be able to control that. And so I get if he's trying to control that and force his way out or force something to happen. He's forcing action, like in a poker game. He's trying to force action. He wants either the team to figure it out or he's going to figure it out for them, whether that being he demands a trade or the team gets some assets around him. But at the end of the day, like, I feel for the guy because you don't want to go out on those terms and basically just ride off into the sun without knowing it. But at the same time, like, dude, you're not bigger than the organization. Like, Father Time is undefeated. There's every single star player in the National Football League has gone out without that, going to Disney World after winning a Super Bowl, and that's they ride off in the sunset. No one does that because they're competitive as hell and they don't want to do that. Like, Tom Brady could have done that this year, but he didn't. Tom Brady also was let go by the New England Patriots, who collectively they built an incredible dynasty that I don't think will ever be matched in the rest of my lifetime. So, like, no one's immune. No one has the the immunity card, if you will, to not have that happen to him. It is what it is.
Very quickly before we do wrap the show up, I tweeted out today that I personally do not care who Jordan Love comps to right now. If Jordan Love is to take the keys to this franchise in 2021, I don't believe any other first-year starter in the history of the NFL has taken over a better roster.
Ooh, that's
so
tough.
If Jordan Love is a Super Bowl caliber quarterback, the time will be over the next 3 to 4 years. So my question to you both, and I'll start with you, Matt. My question is, if Jordan Love takes over this franchise this season, is he going to be successful?
Successful?
Not in terms of a championship, but just in terms of winning, divisions, playoff appearances, etc.
I would say because he's got pieces around him. He's got, like you said, that's a hot take to say that he's first-year quarterback taking over the bet. But, like, it is a really super talented team. You could make that argument, and I'm here for that argument. I might have to go back and look. But, like, I think that based off of what we knew of Jordan Love from a year ago to based off what has happened in the last couple of weeks with some practice tape coming out and seeing how much he's improved and gotten better to being successful, I think he's got enough pieces around him, from the coaching staff to the players that can contribute to the offensive line to everything, that I think he could be successful based off of, a first-year starting dude. And, I mean, say what you will about the rest of the NFC North, but I'm not that terrified. Like, they're going to have a rookie quarterback in Justin Fields who – I'm pretty pissed that they got him, to be honest, because I think that's a hell of a player. Like, I was hoping and praying for a Mac Jones pick, because Mac Jones with the Patriots is way different than Mac Jones with the Bears. There's a slight difference. So I was hoping for that, but, like, Justin Fields is solid. Lions are going to be terrible because they're in a rebuild stage, and I kind of like Dan Campbell. I hope he can figure it out. And then the Vikings.
They're going to Vikings.
They're going to Vikings, and they're going to perform. And they are, and I never wish this on anyone because I'm a fan of him, but, like, they're one injury away from Dalvin Cook to being sub 500 team. So I'm not too concerned about what they have to go against. The defenses are good across the league. So I think he could have a successful first year if necessary. The factor is, again, as I kind of touched on my little thing before, like, time. Like, if the time is early August where Jordan Love's a starter, that's a shitty hand of cards to deal with. If it is Memorial Day and Rodgers is traded and finally got his way out or retires, that's really easy. We can figure that out. But time will be the factor to determine if he can be successful or not. But I think based off what I've seen and a couple highlight videos on Twitter, I think he could come in and do what he needs to do, and his legs will help him too. That's one thing. He's going to be able to extend plays and hopefully be able to scramble for some few yards. That usually helps the younger guys.
This is something interesting to look into after the show. I do firmly believe that no other first-year starter, so a guy that has never started in the NFL, has ever taken over a better roster. You're talking about a top 3 offensive line, a top 3 wide receiver, a top 3 running back, arguably top 3 tight end. At least last year he was a top 3 tight end. You have a top 3 head coach. You have a top 10, potentially top 5 defense. If Jordan Love takes over, I don't think a first-year starter has ever taken over a better team.
That's fair.
That's not. Yeah, you're not far from it. I agree with you. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what it.
Guys, I do hate to cut us off here because we have had one phenomenal show. We are going to call it quits this evening. That has been your wrap up of the NFL draft and the Aaron Rodgers saga. Matt Froehlich, greatly appreciate you coming on the show today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Matt.
We hope to have you on again soon and do this all over again. Once again, this is the Titletown Pod. We are found at Titletown Lounge. You can find Brandon at Wisco_Brandon. And of course, Matt, you can find him at Matt_FRA_. Guys, go Pack, I guess, right?
Go Pack, man. Hey, hey, schedule release is coming up too. So we got a couple days from that.
Do you think the NFL's like, okay, guys, let's figure this out because that schedule coming out and say Rodgers isn't on the team, I think that changes how the NFL views.
Yeah, the Packers are going to have a lot of primetime games with Jordan Love as the starter.
real quick. I have a real fast hot take, and I just want to get this out real fast. I know Matt liked hot takes, and I'm going to kind of answer Rhino's question previously. Do you think the organization is looking at Jordan Love? Because again, we don't know what he looks like, and they're like, man, he's better than we thought. He's farther along than we thought. We could get him on a rookie contract and put pieces around him. I mean, maybe he's better. Maybe he's better than what we think, and what the organization thought he would be.
Yes, I honestly think they're fast tracking this because there's a good chance that they will never have a better team around him for the rest of his career.
Right.
It's a possibility.
No, it's okay
to
go back into it.
I love it though. No,
you never know.
That's a great, and I do genuinely think that the front office is trying to fast track Rodgers' exit because they feel that there's a chance that this is the best team Jordan Love could see in his career. So yes, you're absolutely right. But we are going to call it quits. It's actually starting to thunderstorm, so I don't even know how long I'm going to have power. But once again, Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
And we will catch you again next week, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in.